My guest today is writer-director Daniel Persitz of the inspiring Oscar-qualified short film Key of Genius, based on the extraordinary true story of a blind autistic musical savant and the Queen of England's nephew, Derek Paravicini. Now, the film was also co-written by the Academy Award-winning screenwriter David Seidler of The King's Speech, and the short film explores themes of resilience and brilliance and the human connection. Now, by dramatizing the unlikely but life-changing relationship between Derek and his teacher, the film sheds light on the power of inclusion and the boundless possibilities of neurodiverse individuals. The film's growing acclaim positions it not only as a powerful cinematic work, but also as an important cultural story about the transformative impact of mentorship and the extraordinary brilliance that can emerge in unexpected ways. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome writer-director Daniel Persitz and his extraordinary Oscar-qualified short film, Key of Genius, to the show. Welcome, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I mean, the moment I watched your film, the only word that came out of my mouth was wow. What a beautiful story and a beautiful film. So tell me about Derek Paravicini and his teacher, Adam Oakleford.
Yeah, so the way I came across these guys is I come from a family of classical musicians. I've been playing the violin since I was 5. I still play today in the Santa Monica Symphony here in Los Angeles. And my mom, who's a professional violinist, she's always sending me YouTube clips of various musicians and things. So she sends me this 5-minute clip of this guy, Derek, who I'd never heard of, who supposedly can play any piece of music that he's ever heard in his life perfectly in any key, in any style. And I'm watching this thing and I'm like, this isn't real. This is AI, right? This is like a made up person. But lo and behold, he's a real guy. That clip was taken from a 60 Minutes episode that was done about him. Did a bit more digging and discovered that his lifelong teacher, Adam, who you mentioned, had written a book about his experiences with Derek. And I devoured this thing. And at its core, like I think the thing that resonated with me is it almost felt like an underdog sports movie in a way. Like it had sort of that kind of thing of like, here was this kid who his parents didn't really know what to do with him and society didn't really know what to do with him, but he had this amazing gift and there was this piano teacher that saw that, recognized it, figured out how to cultivate it. And I just fell in love with the story and got to meet the guys, got to visit with them in the UK, brought my violin, got to perform with Derek. I mean, it's been amazing.
Wow. So, what was the first meeting like, sitting down with Adam to understand the overall story and then meeting Derek?
So it honestly was a whirlwind. I got off a flight, like a red eye flight in London. I'm exhausted. I'm supposed to meet Adam. He teaches at a university there in London. I show up. He's in the middle of teaching this autistic girl, and he's like, "Take your violin out, start playing with her." And I'm like, "What? Hi, my name's Daniel. Like, nice to meet you." Like it was like just being thrown right in. So I'm like thrown into these piano lessons, and after a few of them, we got to go and meet Derek, and that was another instant like that I had prepped for, where I'd prepared a few pieces to play with him, and I say, Adam, I prepared these pieces. Do you think he knows them? And Adam's just said, just start playing. Let's see. Let's see. He probably does. And within like 4 or 5 notes, Derek would recognize what I was playing and he would just join in seamlessly. And we were able to do a beautiful duet. And I was like, my brain does not work like this. This is like I'd prepared all these things and practiced these pieces and he just does it. Mind blowing.
What? So, Derek can actually hear a piece of music and then play it back perfectly.
Yes. Yeah. His
Because I
his
saw I
mind
saw
is
it in the
like,
film, you know, and to see it in the film and then to think like you did, is this even real? And you give us a part of the story, and I guess it's the very beginning of this bond between Adam and Derek. And I'm sure you've talked to Adam at length. How long did it take him to figure out a way to communicate with Derek and to help him with music?
so yeah, the short film certainly compresses the timeline a bit, but it really was a journey over the course of several years after he met Derek. Because of the autism, Derek was very nonverbal as a child. He would sometimes repeat back what others would say, but he was quite nonverbal. and extremely defensive of the piano. Like the things that happen in the short where he is hitting Adam and getting him away from the keyboard. This is all true to real life. So just getting to the point where Adam could sit on the bench next to him was like a huge ordeal. And then, building the trust, layer after layer after layer beyond that, it was a journey that took years, to get to that place.
You know what was kind of funny in the film was when Adam would play something, Derek runs to the piano and literally pushes Adam off of it, like, out of my way. I can do this better. And I really found it kind of cute, actually.
Yeah, all of that is so true to real life. I mean, it originated in Derek's home. So he, as you mentioned, nephew of Queen Camilla, he grew up in a very aristocratic British household. Um, and because it was the '80s, people weren't really talking about autism in the way that we are now and aware of it. His parents had no idea he was autistic. They thought, oh, some of the challenges, it's because he's blind and this type of thing. And he was raised by this nanny that figured out that anytime he was exposed to music, he would just stop what he was doing and listen and immerse himself in it. So she would hum these beautiful little songs to him and things like that. And eventually went up into the attic of this big British estate and found this keyboard that had belonged to his grandfather and had brought it down for Derek. And within playing a few notes, he hears this thing and like feels around the room to get to it, starts playing it. And at that point, he would not let anybody touch this thing. It was his. Like it was his domain. It was like his thing that he spent all of his waking hours at this thing, just like exploring the sounds, imitating things he had heard. And yeah, I mean that continued into that first meeting with Adam. And so yeah, like that trust of being able to be at the keyboard together took a long time.
I mean, what did, with Adam, did he just play all of these pieces and Derek just picks up on it? Or was there a way for Adam to fine tune Derek's talent?
So with Derek, the way he was initially exposed to music is he would hear recordings on the house record player, and so his nanny would play records for him. He would listen to a song a few times, and he didn't have any lessons up until that point. He would just somehow figure out how to play those things on the keyboard. No sense of technique. He couldn't see, so he couldn't watch how somebody ought to play the piano. He was literally using karate chops and fists and elbows on the keyboard to do it, but he figured out how to replicate the noises that he heard and the sounds that he heard perfectly. So then when Adam came into his life, the recordings were a big part of it. Adam would sometimes play pieces for him, and Derek would learn them that way. But yeah, playing recordings for him was a big thing.
So that's the point in the film where Adam helped Derek put his hand on top of his hand to show him the correct technique to play.
Yes, that was a
Well,
big breakthrough moment. Yeah.
yeah, very, very beautiful. Now, why was the bond between Derek and Adam? I mean, it must have been very strong for Adam to devote his life to mentoring Derek.
Yeah, so it's true. Adam, has worked with many children over the years. Children with autism, blind children, kind of a variety of people on the spectrum. Um, and Derek was one where there was just a certain talent there and a certain ear for things where he felt that the potential was really great. But again, unrealized, who knows where that would have ended up. He Derek very much required the right teacher, one that would devote this amount of time and energy and also creativity, figuring out how to communicate with him and how to teach him. Like it really took the right teacher student relationship and mentorship for that talent to be realized. It's one of the things I love about the story is we've all heard cases of savants and like that's kind of and genius and things like that. That like I feel like society is obsessed with those terms, and there's almost this implication with those words that somebody is born with a certain gift and that's all it is, and they from day one they can do these things. What I love about this story, and Adam talks about this all the time to this day, is that while Derek certainly had gifts and certainly had a level of genius to him, there was a lot of work that went into this. I mean, it took years. The old 10,000 hour rule, I mean, certainly applies, which is kind of the case, I think, in most of these things. It's like, yes, there are people that have certain great gifts, but it's really the ones that combine that with hard work that get to the best possible place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you recognize the talent, you see a little bit of the rough edges, and now it's time to file them down, hone it, fine tune everything, and to really bring that talent to a whole new level. Every film I've ever watched concerning neurodivergence has become one of my favorite films of all time. And this
Mm.
film isn't actually about music, but it's someone who took the time to be a mentor and build upon one's extraordinary hidden talent that needed guidance, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly. Yeah, it's truly it's a celebration of teachers, really, is what this is. Um, and resilience, that resilience of like finding that connection and discovering it.
Well, the woman in the film, was she the nanny?
No, so the woman is Derek's mother in this story. So in the short, there is a whole feature script version of this project that exists that hopefully will be in production next year. We're putting it together right now, where the nanny is a very important part of that story and very significant. Um, in a short film, you have such limited time and screen real estate to tell a story. So we really had to focus the story down. And the thing that I have always found so emotional about this is, like we were talking about, Derek came from this very upper crust family. His parents were rich and powerful, and the types of people that aristocratically could usually, control and have most of what they wanted because of their wealth and power. But the one thing they couldn't control was having a disabled son, right? Like that's not, that is what it is. And in many ways, it really humanized them and brought them down to earth. And so initially, and this is in the feature version of this, but in reality, when when Adam, who was a very kind of like blue collar teacher, first met with the parents, I mean, the class disparity was tremendous. You mentioned David Seidler, who co-wrote this story, who won the Oscar for writing the King's Speech. I mean, it was that kind of class disparity, right? Like the king and the teacher in that, like worlds apart. It's the same type of thing here. But over time, the parents having to deal with this situation, like it really brought them down to earth. And for me, emotionally, that has always been a really significant part of this and why I wanted to include the mom in the story.
Well, how did you get connected to David?
So this was all on the feature side of things. I had originally adapted Adam's book. It ended up on the Hollywood blacklist, which is like this collection of scripts that execs and studio heads and things like that love. And the project got set up at E1 Studios and then Lionsgate. And they looked at the script and they said, "This is wonderful. We love this, but it would be great if we could bring on board a prestigious British writer to make this a little bit more authentically British." Because if you can't tell from my accent, I'm not British.
Yeah, I get
um,
it.
yeah. So when they said that, obviously as the writer on a project, you never want to be rewritten, but because I was also attached as like a producer and director on the project, I felt okay, this is actually could be a great opportunity if we get the right person. So I said, can I come up with a list of my wish list of who we get? And David was at the top of my list exactly because of the King's Speech, because I love that movie. It deals with some similar things of like the class disparity and also like the disability piece of this. David is somebody who himself had a stutter when he was a child, and his parents would point to the King of England as like this great example of like, oh, who else has a stutter who has figured out a way to manage it is the King of England. So he kind of grew up with this. He understood so much of this story. So he was brought on board and very graciously worked closely with me. He didn't just like take the script and run off. And, he invited me to his home in Santa Fe, which is where he lived until the end of his life. He sadly passed away last year. I spent, some time with him there in Santa Fe. And what he really unlocked in the story, which was really wonderful, is like this truly British class disparity thing that I've been talking about, which I think just as an American, I'll never fully comprehend, in a way that he could. And just like little like British specifics and things like that. And he definitely honed in on some of this parent stuff that I've been talking about too.
Yeah, and I can get that because when you see this film, you kind of feel those elements from the King's Speech, and yeah, you have to have that whole British feel to it. because it's so much different than what we have here in America. When it comes to those who are neurodivergent, society tends to limit them, and it takes films like this one to help overcome the perceptions of what it means to be neurodivergent as well as the challenges. And the challenge was very great concerning Derek's way to communicate, and to see Adam take on that challenge was extraordinary.
Yeah, Adam. Recently, we had this Q&A for the film, and Adam said this brilliant quote that encapsulated so many things that I love about this story. He said something along the lines of, he said, "Disability is no barrier for superb, supreme human achievement." And I was like, "Yes, that's so great." Like, I think what was possible for Derek. Certainly not possible in every instance, but with this combination of the right teacher, what was possible for him was just world class.
Yeah, I love the title of the film, Key of Genius, because we're the ones who hold the key to help others unlock their own genius, correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Again, just an absolute beautiful film. Now, what was the school that Adam taught at, and was it just a school for those with disabilities only?
So the school was the Linden Lodge School for the Blind. And what was really interesting is, uh, at the time, it truly was a school for the blind. Like, there were not autistic kids and kids with other disabilities. It was just a school for the blind. And this got into a little bit of like the parents not understanding what Derek's issues were. They had heard of the school, they knew he was blind, and so they demanded that their son go there. And the school actually rejected him. They said, he's got some other stuff going on. And in this very like indirect British way, they were essentially implying that he's also autistic, but they weren't using that word because, again, it was just, here's a very upper crust family. You don't talk to them that way. And it was Adam who had met Derek in the way that you see in the short, who had really seen some potential there, that fought for him, that basically said, "Listen, we need to expand our horizons at this school. Like, we should take on a student like this." And the headmaster at the school actually was very much resisting to this, and eventually Adam got his way. And then the school started to evolve over the years. Like, it'd be they opened up their doors to many other types of kids and things like that. And so, Adam really led the change at that place.
Well, how did you cast the role of Derek? Because it's actor Cannon Wood. I mean, what was the casting like?
Yeah, this is always the big challenge. Is like, how do you cast a blind autistic piano playing kid? I mean, good luck, right? So the first step was to bring on board this amazing casting director. Her name is Danielle Persitz. She very much specializes in casting underrepresented communities, disability. She works a lot with children, and so she has a really good feel for this space. We knew we were going to shoot the film in Southern California, uh, and she said, "Listen, finding this kid is going to be, it's going to be a needle in a haystack type situation. We need to do a nationwide search for this kid. We'll do the traditional avenues of reaching out to agents and managers, but also targeting parent groups on Facebook, parents of kids with different disabilities and things like that." And so we got these audition tapes from kids scattered all over the country. And Cannon Wood, who lives in Ohio of all places, sent in this video where, as you saw in the film, Derek doesn't really speak, which is true to what he was like as a kid. It's more about capturing his mannerisms and behaviors and things like that. And there was something to Cannon's video where he just, like, his instincts were perfect, like they were so spot on. And for me, really, the important things I was looking for was, number one, that, and number two, directability. So I met with him over Zoom. Cannon was born with Nori disease, so he became blind at a very young age. But with his mom's help, had really like studied the script to really understand this thing. His instincts were spot on, and then he took direction beautifully. So we took a chance on this kid. He really had never acted in a film before. Flew him and his mom out to California for the shoot, and the preparation that he did was just, it was phenomenal. So the first step was, his mom had the script transcribed into Braille for him, so he could study it. And By the time he got to set, this kid knew the script better than any of us, including me. Like he knew this thing inside out. It was amazing. The other challenge was he had never played piano in his life. So in the pre-production period, we did two things. We got him in touch with a local piano teacher in Ohio, and his grandmother fortunately had a piano in her place so he could do some stuff. And then also put him on Zoom with Adam and Derek across the pond, because they're in the UK, where Adam, who's worked with many blind children over the years, could explain certain things to him and to his mom to help Cannon familiarize himself with the keyboard and like how do you approach the piano bench, where do you sit down, like what, So by the time he got to set, he was able to play some basic things, and then of course we had to supplement that with like a piano playing hand double and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, this kid prepped. I mean, it was like a professional level preparation.
Now, but Cannon was verbal, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because I was kind of wondering. I'm thinking, so that's how he took direction, and so uh, so how did he learn to handle the beats
What do you mean the beats?
for acting? To know, when you yell action, and then he does his part. I mean, I guess he just had that script memorized.
I mean, he knew the script. We also did do a lot of rehearsals. I talked him through every scene over Zoom before he came to California, so he could just imagine it. Then when he got to LA, we had some rehearsals with the other actors, so he had some prep time. And then when we would get into the space before we would shoot, we would rehearse with him. And the amazing thing is, I mean, I probably learned more from Cannon than he learned from me. Just the physicality of having a blind child actor in the space and the way he like feels in front of him to get to things. I mean, there were so many things that I just realized on the spot, and we adjusted the way we were shooting stuff to accommodate that, because it's just I think if had we not cast a blind child, like we would have never gotten those kinds of details. And he brought that authenticity to the table. And I think the other benefit for him is, it's really intimidating being on a film set, your first film set, but he can't see any of us, right? He's not looking at a camera with 20 people standing behind it. He's hearing the same voices that he's heard in rehearsals, which is my voice and the other actors. For him, it really was just about learning a new space. He's in a practice room. The piano's over here. He has to feel his way there. And yeah, I mean, as you saw, he was brilliant. What a kid.
So how did you cast the role of Adam and then Derek's mother?
So for the Adam rule, I reached out to some agents and managers that I knew, and a great manager who happens to be a friend of mine represented Gavin Stenhouse, who I had known from TV. I'm a big fan of his work. He's been in one of the best episodes of Black Mirror. What I didn't realize is that he was British, because he always plays Americans in these things. He lives in the States, and he always plays with an American, like a flawless American accent. So you'd have no idea. But yeah, he's obviously British. He also happens to look like a young Adam, and he also happens to play the piano. And I was like, this is just serendipity. We're casting this guy. And I mean, there was like no question. And then for the mom role, we ran a casting search. We had auditions, and then Lauren came in, and just on her first audition, there was no question. I mean, she just blew everybody out of the water. It was amazing,
What
and just
you know,
totally got it.
I mean, all the parts were perfect, and the film flows so great. And when you watch this film, for me, looking at it from an audience point of view, you're just waiting to see what happens every second of this film because you're just so engaged with the storyline. And of course, I didn't know before you came on that you play the violin. So I was amazed beforehand that you actually arranged the medley in the film. So tell me about that.
So yeah, this gets into that very particular way that Derek would play, and absolutely wanting to capture that. So like what he did as a kid, and I can also talk about what he does now, which is like several degrees separation from that, is he would just start in one piece, and then it would become another piece and another piece, and like before you know it, in a minute he's played like 10 different songs, but all stitched together, just because that's how his mind works. So there was that, and then there also was, how do we show that crazy way that he played the first time he met Adam, which was with karate chops and fists and all that stuff. And so I'm not a piano player, but my brother is. I'm familiar with the piano. And what I did was I talked to Adam and Derek extensively about what were those seminal pieces of music that Derek loved as a child. Basically, came up with a big laundry list of those, and started to imagine, okay, if I were to combine four of these, which ones would potentially work, and then which ones could we clearly demonstrate that bizarre technique? And so, yeah, I noodled a bunch on a piano, consulted with my brother a lot, and then when we did cast the piano playing double for Derek, actually evolved some of the music based on my experiences working with that kid. Because that kid is like, he's a brilliant piano player who can like truly play anything, but he has proper technique, and so like having him do all these strange things, it took him a while to get used to that, and like watching him do it, we would figure out better ways to do it and showcase it and all of that.
Wow. Well, tell me about the cinematography of the film because it is so beautiful. The use of light, the bokeh effects, the camera movements just added so much emotion to the overall story. So, who was your cinematographer?
We had this great guy Ed Wu, who I've worked with before, more as a like I produced a show that he shot, but always found him to be just so talented. He also happens to be a violinist and has like a bit of an eye and ear for music things, which I didn't realize when I first sat down with him. But then as we started talking about this, he mentioned that. I was like, this is the guy. And so what we talked about, and he brought a lot of great ideas to the table. What I always really wanted to do with this movie was to get as close to showcasing Derek's point of view as possible. Now, you can't entirely do that, right? Because he's blind. He doesn't actually, we're not going to just like have a screen over black, but getting in really, really close with him, that somewhat very limited depth of field effect of like just what is surrounding him in that kind of immediate thing. And Ed had all sorts of great ideas of how to accomplish that with like a bunch of lenses and technical stuff that I don't understand. And then the other challenge for him was the story took place in 1980s England, and we were shooting in Southern California, and the sunlight here is very different. Like just like Southern California sunlight versus England light, completely different. So Ed set up all sorts of very elaborate lighting schemes to try to replicate that light, have almost kind of like that cloudy day feel, but with like rays of sunlight coming in, um, and contrast again for that Derek point of view kind of vision type idea of like very bright things and then very dark things, and putting those things next to one another was very important. Um, yeah, so yeah, we had a lot of fun visually designing the thing.
So it has, I mean, I'm sure the film has been seen at a UK film festival. Did Adam and Derek actually attend any of the screenings?
Yes, yeah. So we had a screening at Rain Dance. Derek and Adam were there with many members of their families, which was great. Given the subject matter, accessibility for me has always been so important with this film, not just in how we create it, but also in how we screen it and how audiences can experience it. And so we had created closed captions for the film for the hard of hearing audiences, and also audio description for the visually impaired. And we were very, very fortunate with Rain Dance that they were able to provide the audio description in the screening. So Derek got to have a set of headphones on. There were a couple other members of the blind community that were in the audience who came up to me afterwards and they said, "Never been to a screening where I've gotten to do that, and that was really special." So it was very cool to be able to do that.
Well, I know the film is absolutely off the charts fantastic, but what has been the audience's reaction to the film? And I'm sure that many probably shed a tear at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really moving to see how people have been touched by this story. I think the thing that happens with the mom at the end really gets a lot of audiences, and then seeing the photos at the end of Adam and Derek and where they are today, and just you get a sense of their entire lives in this tiny, tiny little thing. Yeah, people have come up to me and expressed like how emotional this was for them. I've heard a lot of stories from teachers of certain students that they've worked with over the years where like some elements of the story reminded them of that experience and how this captured that so accurately. Musicians talking about like the musical accuracy and all of that. Yeah, it's been really wonderful to get those kinds of reactions.
What I loved about the photos at the end it really drove home how special this story is, but it also, shows the audience this is a real story.
Hmm.
And, I was sitting there looking at the photos and I'm just like, wow, because I just fell in love with this film. And now that you're Oscar qualified, how does that feel?
I mean, what a ride. It's been crazy. We had screenings in London and in New York and LA for, Academy members and stuff like that. For me, it's awards are great, right? But for me, the goal has always been, how do we get this story in front of as wide of an audience as possible and share Adam and Derek's journey with people who don't know who he is. Prior to this, I didn't know who he was. You didn't know who he was. Like, this is a story that people should know about. So for me, what I'm mostly excited about is just the opportunity, just being on that platform of getting it exposed to a wider audience.
Yeah, it's what an incredible film that you've created. And so with the passing of David, how are you handling the writing of a full feature?
Well, the good news is the full feature is written. It actually predated the short film, so we've had the feature script for some time now. So now it's really just about putting together the independent financing to go and make the thing. And that script, rock solid. Like, I mean, it's very 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 proud of where that thing has landed. I think we can really tell an epic, amazing story on a bigger canvas like that.
Yeah, this is one of those films that, I mean, as a feature, is going to be a film that when it gets made and people get to see it, it's really going to be a part of cinematic history. It just has that look, it has that feel to the whole story, and I cannot wait. I'll be first in line to see the feature on this one.
So will I, by the way.
What
Yeah.
now?
So will I. I'll be first in line too. Yeah, right
Yeah,
there with
I'll
you.
stand right behind you then, because I
That's
can't
great.
wait to see this because I fell in love with this. And, ladies and gentlemen, the inspiring short film Key of Genius, based on the extraordinary true story of a blind autistic musical savant, and again, the Queen of England's nephew, Derek Paravicini, has officially entered the Oscar qualifying circuit. Well, The Key of Genius is adapted from In the Key of Genius, the acclaimed biography written by professor and piano teacher Adam Ogleford, which chronicles his life as Derek's mentor. The film captures the remarkable journey of a young man who, though born blind and autistic, discovered an extraordinary gift of music. And it also celebrates the transformative role of mentorship, as Ogleford recognized Derek's genius and devoted his life to nurturing his talent. This short film is extraordinarily beautiful in so many ways. And these are the types of films I live for: human stories that help us to become better human beings. Key of Genius encourages us to become mentors, to look past a disability or even social status and see the gifts, talents, and abilities that live in us, and also that live in those around us. The message of this film is simple. We may well hold the key to help someone unlock their genius. And let's be that someone. And I'm going to keep my eye out on this film as it makes its run to the Oscars. And I really want to see this one shortlisted. And Daniel, thank you so much for giving me the honor to watch your film and talk about it today.
Yeah, thank you, Ward. Really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.